Hello there, there's Peter LeBeau talking about this week's game with Vitoria Guimaraes. Guimaraes in Portugal is in the north of Portugal, and I must confess it's a place I've never been to. I go to Portugal every year, but it's down to the Algarve, and I have very little concentration on football when I'm there. But it's a lovely country, and in fact we've played Portuguese opponents. We've played 5 different Portuguese teams in our history, but not that often. And we've got a pretty mixed record against Portuguese opponents. I wanted to look back today particularly on 2 games that I think were quite important in the history of Arsenal Football Club. The first one was actually 50 years ago, almost this very week. The first game that I ever went to, a European game at Highbury against Sporting Lisbon. I think it was actually played in the early part of November, and we'd drawn 0-0 in the away leg of the Fairs Cup, and this new European football thing was very interesting to a lot of the Arsenal supporters who were going along to see it for the first time. And I can remember just the different feel about the game. The pace of the game was different, the quality of the passing was different. Arsenal weren't in reality very European. They had a team with 9 Englishmen and 2 Scots. There were no subs used in the game, and we won 3-0 with 2 goals by George Graham and 1 by John Radford, and it was a fairly comfortable victory. And it was a victory that was very important, pivotal if you like, because it moved us on into the latter stages of the Fairs Cup, which of course we won that season, and that was a massive stepping stone in the development of that Arsenal side. It might have been that if we hadn't have won the Fairs Cup, we may never have seen the 1970-71 double. The second game that I want to talk about against the Portuguese opposition was a game against Benfica in 1991. That was a game which was part of a 2-leg game. In 1991, I referred to it in my previous podcast, we'd had a very satisfactory championship season where we'd won the league, losing only 1 game, and we actually started the European Cup, as it was then, as favourites. We were expected to blast aside Benfica. We'd beaten an Austrian side on aggregate very significantly. I think we won 6-1 at Highbury, and then when Benfica came, we'd already drawn 1-1 in the away leg in Lisbon. So it was expected that we would take them apart fairly comfortably. And when Colin Pates, and not many people remember Colin Pates playing and certainly scoring for Arsenal, scored in the first half, it looked as if we were on our way to a comfortable victory. Benfica were managed by a chap called Sven-Göran Eriksson. I wonder what happened to him. And they actually played some super football. And they had a guy playing through the middle who was far too quick for our central defenders. A guy called Azias. I think he was a naturalised Brazilian who played for Portugal. He was very impressive on the night and equalised before half time. And then the game, with the first leg having been drawn 1-1, went to extra time. Juran, the Russian, put them ahead in the first half, so that meant they were ahead on aggregate. And then Azias in the second half rubbed home the victory, so that we went out 3-1. And that was a pivotal moment again for Arsenal, because George Graham changed his whole philosophy after that, it seemed to me. George never ever played sides with attacking midfields after that. We'd had Davis and Rocastle playing on that night, but after that we tended to move to much more conservative midfields with players like Hillier and Jensen and Morrow and Selly and McGoldrick and Carter, and sometimes all 4 of them in the same team, which meant that we weren't a very attractive side. Perhaps a little bit like the Arsenal side at the moment, which is a very salutary thought given the amount of money that's been spent on the side. But let's return to that later. Let's think about the Guimaraes game. I've really enjoyed the Thursday night game against Liège, and I enjoyed the Forest game, which was a super performance. And it seems we're playing with a freedom in the European competition this season, with a much younger, less experienced side that we just don't have in the what I would call first team at the moment. Certainly Unai Emery refused the opportunity to play some of the players coming back from injury, like Tierney and Holding and Bellerin in the league team, so we imagine we will see them on Thursday night. And we'll also see the very exciting Martinelli playing through the middle, where he's looked so exciting so far. So I expect a comfortable win against Guimaraes. They were fifth in the Portuguese league last year, but they haven't started this competition well, having lost their first two games, and we should win fairly comfortably. And if we do and manage to get a decent result in Portugal, then we've effectively sealed qualification with 2 games to go for the latter stages of the Europa League. It's a bit disappointing though to reflect on the really very disappointing performance at Sheffield United last night. I don't think I've seen an Arsenal side play less creatively and look less likely to search out an equaliser. It was a very, very flat performance, the sort of away performance we're becoming all too used to seeing, and one that's becoming rather depressing. And a lot of question marks are going to start surfacing about Unai Emery's ability to take Arsenal to the next level, and that next level is qualification for the Champions League. It seems very strange that we almost have 2 types of football at the Emirates this season. We have the exciting young side with few inhibitions that have got 2 super results away in Frankfurt and at home against Liège. And then we have the stuttering league side. Our last performance against Bournemouth was a very, very cautious and rather hard-gained victory. So let's hope the Guimaraes game gives us a bit of impetus for the game going into the weekend against Palace, which will be a very difficult game. And that's a game that I'll look at in my next preview. Thank you very much.